Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Edna Ness. Edna Ness is the co-founder of a revolutionary hyperbaric oxygen and light therapy healing center in Vancouver, Washington. Edna and her business partner, Caitlin Wilson, were both struggling with chronic migraines and autoimmune flares when they began searching for answers beyond traditional treatment options. What started as a personal journey for healing quickly evolved into something much, much bigger. After attending a light therapy conference and experiencing powerful results from hyperbaric oxygen therapy, they made a pact. If they experienced true healing, they would open a clinic to help others do the same. Not long after opening their clinic, Edna's husband was diagnosed with stage 4 throat and tongue cancer. Through his recovery journey, many of the same therapies they now offer in their clinic became part of his path to healing. Today, their center operates multiple hyperbaric chambers and advanced therapies, helping people facing some of the toughest health challenges, from cancer recovery to autoimmune conditions and traumatic brain injuries. Today, we'll dive into Edna's journey, how personal health challenges turned into a mission-driven business, and how innovative therapies are helping people reclaim their health and their lives. You can find Edna by going to her website in lighthyperbarics.com. Hello, Edna. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a pleasure.
I'm excited, and let's dive right into it because there's so much for us to discuss. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Edna Ness?
Well, that's definitely a two-pronged question. Mm-hmm. Professionally, I guess really I have to look at the financial part of it, because if I'm not successful financially, I can't keep the doors open, and then I can't help people. But for me personally, helping people have hope and get the healing that they need, if I can help one person every day, that is success for me. So that's what brings me joy, is just helping people feel better, look better, like having hope that they're not going to suffer anymore.
And one thing you brought up when you were talking about success is really that line. And when I say the line, I mean connecting the money to the passion to the joy of everything. And I love how you did that, because so many times we'll think there's success buckets. But really what you just emphasized as well is that it's really that flowing of a river more than just a bucket. And that flow connects to everything. If we're not showing up and making money in our business, how are we going to show up and feel personally? How are we going to show up and be present and help others? And right. I think that's really powerful, because it's so important to identify as well.
Yes.
So one thing that when we talked originally and when I was prepping for this conversation, I realized not just that passion and not just that joy, but you created a business around something that not only helped you and your friend, but also family, right? Your husband. And using those real results and saying, okay, how can I serve as many people as possible? And you and your business partner, Caitlin, were both dealing with chronic migraines and autoimmune flares before starting this journey. Can you take us back to that time and what life looked like for a while you were searching for answers yourself?
Absolutely. I think that to really do this justice, I need to start from the very beginning, so that people understand where I came from and how I got clinical experience to do what it is that I do today, because it is really important. So my journey for finding answers for my health issues started in the year 2000. So I was a single mom for many, many years of three very active sons. And I was working two jobs to make ends meet, and I was very broken down. At that time, I was suffering not only with chronic brain issues or chronic pressure in my head and migraines, but I also had severe IBS. And I knew I needed some kind of different healing because the medical world wasn't really doing it for me. I started working with a naturopathic physician and to try and get my diet under control and help, especially with my bowel issues. After working with her for a year, those issues basically were gone. So she helped me change my diet, work with my food allergies. And it ended up that I had so much passion for what she did for me and how she changed my life that I begged her to hire me. So in 2001, I started working for her. And as it turns out, I would work for her for the next 14 years. And that's where I really learned a lot about diet, supplementation, and all kinds of different alternative care, all kinds of things. She helped me with my bowels, but I still had that pressure in my head. So we would continue to try and find different ways that I could hopefully help with my migraines. And it wouldn't be until, in 2004, I bought my first light therapy device, thinking that might help with my migraines. Light just really spoke to me. I don't know why, I was drawn to it. So I bought my first light pad. And in the long run, it didn't help with my migraines, but it helped a lot with the tension that I would get from the migraines. And I would continue to use it both professionally and personally. And I would use it in the clinic for a lot of different people. I would do it with a lot of different ailments. And I was blown away at what light therapy could do for the body. And this was back when not many people knew about light therapy for pain and inflammation or for healing. This is also at the same time that Caitlin's in my world would collide. So she is 30 years younger than I am. And she was 18 at the time. And she had had 2 rounds of mono before she was 18. And, they really couldn't help her much. And she was just really suffering. So I would guide her through, that journey as far as working with naturopathic remedies and light therapy. And she would end up getting her healing from that. So for years, she would help me just educate people about light therapy. I was selling light therapy because I wanted to educate people on what light could do for them. In 2009, I went back to school and got my license as an esthetician. I wanted a license to touch the body so that I could practice without just being only under a physician. So that was awesome. I still worked for the naturopath, but I also set up, I put together a salon where I worked with people individually and continued to educate others about light therapy and the power of it. Caitlin and I became business partners in 2013. Now, through all of this time, I was still continuing to have the pressure in my head, and I would have migraines at least 4 days out of the week. So always had that threat of a migraine every day, which is not very much fun. And, I was on medication, but, they would only give me 9 pills a month. Well, when you're having that many migraines, that doesn't really help you because once you've taken those 9, then it was a matter of every time my husband would have to take me to the ER. So to get a shot of Toradol and, calm everything down. So it was really difficult to still be working, still supporting my children, and suffering as much as I did. So I needed, in actually 2013 was when I first found out about hyperbarics. So that was before Caitlin and I went to Cancun for that light therapy conference. But at this particular conference, they had a hyperbaric chamber there. And I asked them if I could do an hour of hyperbarics in the chamber when I was there. And I did. And after that first treatment of hyperbarics, I had a month without a migraine, which was huge for me. So I knew that someday hyperbarics would be in my future.
One thing you mentioned in that story too, and there's so many impactful parts, but I got to bring this up as well,
Okay.
is what is it like finding a business partner where you have this common ground, but there's similar but different life experiences and different points in your life journey as well, not only bringing different perspectives to the table, but really you're in two different spaces. And so what has that been like, and what have you learned from her, and what has she learned from you in continuing your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh my gosh, it has been like a match made in heaven, really, as far as I'm so grateful for her youth and, her being, having the knowledge of social media and her being able to reach or speak to the younger crowd if that's needed. And then having me 30 years older than her, having a little bit more wisdom. I had a lot of clinical experience, which is really important when you're doing a business like this. And I think that what has made our partnership so beautiful is, so she dated my youngest son for 13 years. So we already knew each other and had a lot of respect and love. And they would eventually break up. And I just felt like she is the one person who understood what I was doing, had so much passion, just like I did, for the therapies that we used to help ourselves. But not only that, also really wanted to help others from our experiences. And so having a business partner that you have love and respect for, we've never gone sideways. We've been in business now for 12 years and never, the respect is so big that we were able to talk through everything and really support each other. So it's really an amazing thing, because I know how hard business partners are. It's hard to have a business partner.
I was going to say, it's a difficult thing sometimes to have business partners. I don't, but it's also really important. I've seen it. It's also really important to have the right people around you and the right sounding board. And I want to dive into that. But I got to ask, because I know probably so many people are thinking it right now, is you never had a hiccup and you saw her as this. But how did your son feel going like, okay, now she's really going to be a part of our life for like ever, because now she's going into business with my mom. Yeah. There's no kind of like navigating around this. How was that conversation?
And yeah. That's a good one. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's everybody always wonders that. But when we made that decision, they were still together at the time. But when we kind of knew that it was going to be rocky, as far as that they were not going to end up together in the long run, I sat both of them down and I told them that you guys are going to have to deal with each other the rest of my life. And but it is the right match. And I think my son, he knows how passionate I am, and he knew how passionate Caitlin was, because he watched her go through her journey, because they were friends clear from elementary school, and then started dating per se in junior high, and then all through high school. And then 13 years is a long time. So he watched her, and he knew her passion as well. So he understood that what I was doing was probably the right thing to do. And so they just know that, they don't live in the same town anymore, which is helpful, and he's married and has children now. So, they don't have to face each other much, but it was a matter of it, just like everything, having a conversation. I think it's really important to just have that honest conversation. And this is why we're doing what we're doing, and talk it through.
And as you were saying that, in the back of my mind, I was like, so logical and so like mom to also be like, listen, this is the reality of things too, yes. Right? There's whether it's like mom to kids or like mom of a friend group, let's be honest, there's all times where someone's got to step in and be like, this is the reality. We got to figure it out. How are we going to deal with this? But also, as you were talking about that, I was like, there's probably so many families, whether they have the conversation or not, in a family business where, people might get divorced and it's a family business. You're all still working together. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a great example of how to handle those moments of two people separating, but you're building something and or have built something. And it's not like the parties are just going to disappear and clean the hands, even if you wish that could potentially happen.
Yeah.
And that being said as well, one thing you brought up is having love and respect for your business partner. How have you handled, as you've continued to grow and different aspects, maybe, and like I'm asking this question because I'm curious. So has goals changed, and partially due to, as each of us individually grow, our goals can change personally and professionally. How have you continue to make sure you're on the same page with goals, but also you're on the same page with how you show up and serve clients?
Oh, wow. It's been so natural. So, because I feel like both of us, it's so deep in our hearts and our soul to help others that it hasn't changed. And, I think also because we are so good at communicating with each other and sitting down, spending the time and talking about, what is the next stage of our business? We're looking at, adding this device. What does that mean for the business? Is it going to change our vision? Just talking through each step as it comes along. I think that's the most important thing, is just really the communication about it all. And I want to just mention one other thing, because it's about it, as far as the business part of it, and making sure that things don't, that you have things lined up. Mm-hmm. It was really important to me to make sure that that we have that long. Obviously you have an operating agreement, and let's stick to that, but also to make sure that I'm 70, so we don't live forever. And I wanted to make sure that everyone was honored through my legacy, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so we have everything in line. So everybody knows what's going to happen when I pass. And there's no doubt as far as, how my family gets their part of my legacy. But it's really her job to carry my legacy forward.
And I want to talk about that, because whether it's old age or just something happens and comes up in life, that day comes, and owning a business or not owning a business, right? Yeah. Having a planning place is important. So how did you, having that as a goal, and that really important to you, of not just having the legacy, but also being very clear on, all the steps. What was that conversation like? Because, for example, I asked that because I remember when my grandmother was the last to pass away. And her death did come suddenly, but about 2 years, I would say, before she passed away, my Nana passed away. So ironically, the two last living grandparents I had were both women, the women on either side. And when my Nana passed away, it was also kind of unexpected. It was over a few months, but it was unexpected overall. And she like had her will and everything in place. But I remember the next time we went to visit my grandma took us, me and my sisters, to the side, and my mom and dad, and like we were just having a normal day. And like I remember being in her house and just hanging out. And then she looks at us, she goes, "Girls, come here." And my Italian grandmother way. And we're like, okay. And she walks into her bedroom and she turns around and looks at us. And she goes, "I want you to have a piece of me. And I want you to have a piece of my jewelry. Each of you right now pick out at least one thing, so I can guarantee you get at least one thing you want." And I looked at her and I was like, "We're not talking about this right now. You're not dying. Like, stop." Like, I'm getting emotional even telling it, because I'm just like, women, you're very healthy. Your grandma, like, I'm like, stop talking about like you're gonna go tomorrow and like it's gonna be over and you want us to have these pieces. But it was very important to her. But it came with me being like, can we stop? Like, what are we doing here? Stop it. But when the day did come, which we didn't know, like her way, she had put each item in a box and in a side, and each box had our names on them. And I was like, okay, wow. And then everything else, got divvied up different ways. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes we all react differently to when those conversations come up. And you even talking right now, I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm 31, but maybe I should have a plan. Like, okay, my business, because I'm a solo entrepreneur. Like, what happens? Do people, especially if you're not an entrepreneur, do you know what needs to be covered?
Well, and you don't know when your last day is, and it's so interesting, because when you said that, after what your grandma said, that's how Caitlin would always respond. It's like whenever I brought it up, it's like, stop, let's not talk about this. This is not happening. And it's like, no, it's not happening today, but it is inevitable. And we never know when our last day on earth is. So we're always better off to have a plan. And no matter how young you are, you should have a plan. I highly recommend it.
Well, now you got me thinking about it. So now I'm like, maybe I should call my business attorney after this and have a conversation.
For sure. And so as far as like those conversations, I mean, they're not easy, because you're talking about something that you really don't want to have happen. And however, with Caitlin and my three sons, they all have so much respect for me and the work that I do, and they know the passion that I have for it and how important it is that it continue after I'm gone. I think the fact that everybody has so much respect and love for each other, even though Caitlin and my son aren't together anymore, they still have that respect. And so those conversations were not hard for me, a little hard for them, because you don't really want to talk about that issue, but you also don't want to have things turn upside down when it does happen. Yeah. So better to be, I think it really does like calm everyone's nerves internally to know that there is a plan in place. So it's very, very important. And I have to say that it was, I just want to share this little tidbit. In 2021, I nearly died of COVID. And I was in the ICU for 2 weeks, and it was really touch and go for 2 weeks, whether or not I was coming out of there. And at that time, my oldest son was my power of attorney medically. And what I realized through that experience, because he doesn't really understand everything that I believe in and how I would want to be treated, even though he knows my business, and he doesn't really have the knowledge that I have and that Caitlin has. And so it was Caitlin that was directing him through that whole thing. What do you need to be telling the doctors? What questions do you need to be asking? And going through that experience, because obviously I lived, thank goodness, my work wasn't done. But what it made me realize was that I had the wrong person as my power of attorney for my medical issues. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I changed in my will. And so, and they have respect for that.
Yeah. And it's also like, sometimes you go through moments and you're like you said, you realize who the right person is, but it's also sometimes the person who was the wrong person, whether it's in job or like a responsibilities like that, was like, why am I in charge of this? Like, this person is a better fit. And even talking about this right now, as we've been talking about this specific topic, and I was like, my boyfriend who's in the military, when you go through boot camp before you go to your first station, you have to write out your will. You have to have all that in place. So I remember, and I totally forgot this until we were talking. We were actually in Juneau where we are stationed, and we just went to the Shrine of Saint Therese, which is here in Juneau, by ourselves. And we saw this along the path, like towards the end, they have like the cemetery blocks, like stone things. And it's very pretty. And we went and like paid our respects to those people. And that was like our second, third time there. And we hadn't walked that far. So we didn't even know that you could be buried there. And we turn around and he mentioned something. He's like, oh, when I die, I already have this plan. This is the plan. And I was like, okay, sure. Okay. And it was so nonchalant because he had been in for so long that it was just like, okay, whether it happens during this time or down the line, like this was a conversation I had to think through this at 18 years old. So sit with it. And so I was like, okay, sure. And it was just with such confidence and ease that makes you more confident and ease. So the other thing I realized is, and you expressed it today, is like when you are confident and it is a priority and you're secure in the decision, it makes everyone else kind of be like, okay, more comfortable with it as well. Yeah. But let's move on from that because there's so much more to discuss. I want to talk about and I see it behind you as we're recording right now, your book, Radical Recovery. What made you decide to write a book?
I felt it was really important to continue to educate people about things that I had learned and how we as humans can get better healing, faster healing by using different modalities. When I worked for the naturopath, I learned so much about, supplementation and all kinds of different therapies. But what I realized through that is that my heart always went to what modalities can be used to help encourage the natural healing abilities in our body. So we're giving our body extra energy in different ways. Light therapy is through photons. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is hyperoxygenating the body. There's a lot of different, using castor oil to help pull out toxins. All those different things. And I felt it was really important to share the knowledge that I had gained over the years, because when my husband went through what he went through, I needed to pull out of all of those years of experience to help him to survive what he was going through. And I felt it really important to pass that on for other people, because it was a big, big challenge what he was facing. And so it was just my way of, putting it out to other people, not, other people can find it without even knowing me, and maybe get something out of it to help someone else with their journey through it. And it was also very cathartic, because what we went through was very, very intense.
And I'm curious about too, once you started writing, what was your process? Like, did you sit down and all of a sudden everything flowed out? Or were there moments where you're like, I'm running this business, I got this going on, and now this is sitting on the top of my head? Because a lot of people right now as well are like, how can I help as many people as possible? And you mentioned that in a subconscious way as you were answering the question of, going back to legacy, going back to helping as many people as possible and that reach. But once you get started with something, right, especially when you're a busy individual, sometimes things can fall off the plate and you never finish them. So for you, what was that like? And how did you make sure you finished that book and it got out there?
That's a really, really good question, by the way, because so many people start something and they just never finish it because they keep changing it and never finishing it. So it never gets into the hands of the people that need it. So I worked with a coach, and her deal was 90 days to done. So you were encouraged to write your book in 90 days, and whatever it is at 90 days, that's your book, and you get it published. So I was under pressure from myself to get that done. And so I took time to, yes, sometimes it was sitting in my office and just, going through, typing out the story, just making sure, I was just day by day. And I did a lot of it through, so when my husband was going through his cancer diagnosis and treatment and everything we went through, I kept a daily log, so of all of his medications, took notes on everything that was going on with him, bowel movements, blood pressure, all of everything. So each page had a day. Each day had a page. And so I had his whole story in this notebook of everything we had been through. So I really kind of went off of that a lot, but I also had it ingrained in my mind because it was intense what we went through. When we got to Seattle for a third opinion, they told us he had less than a week to live. So it was touch and go for quite a while, for a couple months, of whether or not he was going to live through this. And so as I was writing, there were times when I would burst into tears and have to run out of the room and away from my computer and breathe, because it brought up such emotion from what we had just gone through, and how I had the strength to do it all. How did I gather the strength? Because I had to be his everything. And so it was very cathartic. And then there were also times when I did a lot of my writing inside of a hyperbaric chamber, which felt like a safe place too.
Well, and I want to dive into that aspect, right? Because a lot of people, while we're sitting here, are probably like, okay, trying to imagine what a hyperbolic chamber is like. So I had another question in mind, but first I want to touch upon that, and then we're going to go.
Okay. First, always make sure you say it right, because hyperbolic is way different than hyperbaric.
Oh, Well, see, I'm learning something right now.
And you're not alone. A lot of people do that. So it's okay.
So tell me what that is like, and yeah, all this stuff.
And why we use it, or
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we kind of hopped all over the place here. And um, so hyperbaric oxygen therapy is breathing oxygen at a pressure, a greater pressure, to get a change in the body. So how it works is we typically rely on red blood cells to get oxygen to our tissue. But when we have any kind of inflammation or damage in the body, we get restriction in the blood vessels. And we're not going to be able to get those red blood cells through to get to the tissue on the other side. That's when we start having symptoms. So it can be symptoms like pain, it can be disease like cancer, it can be migraines, headaches, brain trauma, memory loss, fatigue, any kind of symptom. You can pretty much bet that there is an area of your body that is not getting the oxygen that it needs. And those cells are sending a message to us saying, help me, I need oxygen. So oxygen is our most important primal nutrient. It's the one thing we can't live without for minutes. And it's the first thing we need when we need healing. We need oxygen to get to the tissue. So the symptoms that are being sent to us from our cells is really saying, get me oxygen. And so our fluids can flow to all parts of our body, but it doesn't carry oxygen, so it can't really help. So when you're in a hyperbaric chamber, we now can dissolve the oxygen into the fluids of the body, and that's called Henry's Law. And Henry's Law says when we put a gas under pressure, we can now dissolve it into fluids. So the simplest way for someone to have a visual of this is, those little soda stream things that make carbonated water. So that's an example of Henry's Law. So that's putting oxygen under pressure and you're making bubbly water. So when you get in a hyperbaric chamber, it's like a soda stream for the body. It literally is dissolving that oxygen you're breathing into the fluids of the body. So now we can hyperoxygenate the body with the fluid now carrying oxygen. So that way we can start reducing inflammation and start reducing symptoms. It's as simple as that.
So the next question, you're saying it's as simple as that, is who should be looking at this? Like, should everyone be using it, even if you're healthy? Should everyone kind of make it part of at least a yearly routine and do it? Or is it really for if you're having certain symptoms?
So in my opinion, and from what I've gone through, I think everyone should have the experience so you know that it is an option for you when you need it. Personally, that's how I feel. I feel like every household should have a hyperbaric chamber in it because we would all be a little healthier. So, obviously, I use it for anti-aging now. What does that mean? It means I'm keeping internally my body younger by getting in hyperbaric chamber because I'm making sure that I'm reducing inflammation on a regular basis. Is it that I get in every day? No, I don't get in every day. Sometimes I go through times when I'm in there every morning. But people that really should, so yes, as far as across the board, I think everyone should try it just so you know what the therapy is and be familiar with it. But the people that really can benefit are, we, as far as in our facility here, anybody that has any kind of brain problems, whether it be traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress syndrome, even dementia, getting more oxygen to the brain is game changer. So reducing the inflammation in the brain and getting more oxygen / blood flow can do wonders. Any kind of cancer recovery, because if someone's going through chemo and radiation or surgery, you need recovery. Chemo and radiation destroy our blood vessels. I mean, it is really hard on our bodies. We come out of treatment with a lot of damage, and we don't have much of an immune system to help ourselves to heal. And if we can give our body some extra nutrients, such as oxygen and light, you can really speed up the recovery after your treatment. I feel like anybody who goes through radiation therapy should absolutely, hands down, go through hyperbaric treatment. So in the hyperbaric world, there's 15 diagnoses that are FDA approved. So those are the only conditions that are covered by insurance. One of those is post-radiation damage. The thing that I am not happy with, and it frustrates me, is that they won't give you hyperbaric, they won't refer you to hyperbaric oxygen therapy after radiation. They will wait for you to start falling apart because the radiation has damaged your tissue to the point where it doesn't have circulation that it needs. I feel like it should be standard of care after radiation treatment, personally, just from what I saw happen with my husband and what I see has, happen with other people that I've seen here at the clinic. I don't know if I got off track there, but
no, it made me think of something else. I'm like, I have more and more questions here about this. So one thing you mentioned early on in your answer, you're like, you should do it, at home, and it's as easy as that. So you have your treatment facility in Vancouver, Washington, and I'm going to go out on a limb, okay? And this could be, I could be proven wrong, but I'm going to go off on a limb and say in Juneau, Alaska, for example, there isn't a facility that offers that. Is this something for people who don't have a facility near them that they can do at home? Or is this something where you really do need that facility?
Well, for one, you might be surprised if you look for a facility. So you might not know there's not a lot of us around. It is a pretty small industry, but it is growing by leaps and bounds. We do sell hyperbaric chambers. We also rent them straight from the company. And we can set up a chamber. We can help anyone set up a chamber in their home. So it would be a mild, usually it would be a mild chamber. We also set up hard shell chambers that go to a higher pressure, but mild hyperbaric chambers go to a very low pressure, which is usually around 10 feet underwater pressure. And even though it's so mild, you can still get so much benefit. I mean, for 5 years of our business, all we had was mild hyperbarics. Many people will tell you that's not hyperbarics, but it is any time you are going under pressure, you will start, as soon as the pressure changes that is around your body, you are going to start having gene expression change. And for me, I got my healing from my migraines and my nerve damage that I had taken on from a 220 volt shock. I got all of my healing in a mild hyperbaric chamber without extra oxygen. So all I had was this chamber that I was getting in and doing treatment twice a day for at least an hour twice a day. And within a month, my migraines were gone and my nerve damage was well on its way from disappearing. And that was back when we bought the chamber, and we said, if we get our healing, if I get my healing, we'll open a healing center. If I don't get my healing, we'll sell the chamber. Well, that's how we ended up having a healing center, is because I did get my healing from that mild pressure. So nobody can tell me that doesn't help you, because it was a game changer for me. And for 12 years, I have never had another migraine. Mm-hmm. So it was permanent change for me. And I'm sure that it was because I had brain trauma from flying over my handlebars and landing on my face, or falling out of trees. And, I can tell you many times when I'm sure that I had concussions. And as over the years, if you have that inflammation in your brain, you will continue to get worse. And I did continue to get worse. And so it was a game changer for my life. And I think it can be for other people as well.
And is there, like you mentioned earlier, through different stories like that one you did twice a day at home. Earlier you mentioned a different amount of time. So let me put it this way, should you consult someone like yourself to create the plan, say this is how long you should go in, things like that?
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. You always want to work with somebody that has some knowledge behind their belt. At the time when I did that, I was working under a physician. They wrote me a prescription. We have to have a prescription on file for anyone that we put in a hyperbaric chamber, or for somebody for home use. So we set up a lot of chambers in people's homes because they need them in their homes, because they're not close enough to a facility to get the treatment that they need, and they're that sick. So, but we have to have a prescription on file. So it is good to chat with somebody, to work with somebody that knows what they're doing and that can help you get the prescription you need and have the physician's backing and knowledge. So we have a medical director here. So it's not just my experience and what I do, but we do have a medical director. And I think it's very important, because you need that guidance. It's a medical treatment. It's been being used for over 300 years. Medically, hyperbarics has been. So there's a lot of years that we can rely on for data.
Well, and it's in all that you're saying as well. In my head, I'm going, okay, this should also be talked more about in the military.
Absolutely. Totally. Yes.
Like there's a lot of PTSD. There's a lot of, injuries that occur. There's a lot of things. I'm just like going in my head. I'm like, oh, this would.
For sure. And, the thing is that, and there's more and more studies coming out, the doctors that we work with, that we rely on when we go to conference every year, that do our talks. They're all doing, amazing research studies proving that these lower pressures are, a lot of times, that's what we need. And especially when it comes to PTSD and brain trauma, those lower pressures it can change somebody's world very quickly.
Yeah. So all the military people out there,
they need it. Yes.
Ask the question. I know about TRICARE, so see, we're closest to you. And it very much sounds like, from what you said earlier, it should be something that should be a part of all of our discussions, even as a not reactive, proactive.
Proactive. I think it's the future.
I was like, that doesn't make sense. Proactive.
I think it's really part of the future of our medicine. You look at pro athletes and how they're using it, and you wonder, these athletes are playing longer at an older age, and how are they doing that? Why are they doing that? It's because of all the biohacking that's happening, and hyperbarics is one of those big tools that they use. Mm-hmm. So.
And one thing I want to cover as well is everyone's health journey is different. So how do you approach creating a personalized treatment plan for people who come to your clinic, whether it's a proactive or reactive situation?
So the first thing that I feel is so important is just sitting and listening to their story, because you really want to understand what they've been through, how are they feeling, what are their symptoms, what have they tried, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and just really standing with them in their story. And from there, then we can talk about what therapies, because we do have a lot of different therapies here that are all natural to give our bodies different energies to get the healing that we need. And so then we can guide them on what we would recommend for them, what could be beneficial. And that might include, I'm not going to be able to get to the clinic to do treatment. So then we can see what can we do, how can we help you at home? And so really it's a matter of listening to people, what they've been through, where they're at the time, and giving them some hope. So that's one of the things that I love about what we have built here. We went from 1,500 square feet when we first started with one chamber and a few light pads to a 4,500 square feet facility. And what I love is when people come in and they have been suffering terribly and they say, I've tried everything and nobody has any answers for me. And we're able to introduce them to several different therapies that could be beneficial for them that they've never heard of. And that's a really good feeling, to give people hope that there may be something else that they've never heard of that they can try, and it might help them get out of their suffering.
I love
so that feels really good to me. That's success.
There you go. Love it. And it's a great way to wrap up. We start with the word success. We're going to end with it. Okay. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
So you can reach me off of our website, which is inlighthyperbarics.com. You can look up Inlight Hyperbarics and get the phone number and give us a call. I do consults with people all the time, whether you are able to come into the clinic or we do it via Zoom like this. We can connect in many different ways, but probably the website is the best way to reach me. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Edna, for all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun. It went in a totally different direction than I thought it was going to.
Well, I like to surprise my guests like that.
That's awesome.
Impactful conversation, and it could go in an unpredicted path, just like the healing you help so many people do.
Absolutely.
And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation include: have love and respect for your business partners and for people in your life. I really think that shine through in so much that Edna talked about is having respect for the people and open communication with the people you work with, loved ones, for clients, and having that level of respect will pay dividends in the long run, but also help you show up with that joy that Edna talked about and that passion every single day, as well as spend more time walking through all aspects. When Edna talked about how she approached is figuring out a health plan with a client, when she talked about figuring out long-term plans for the business, for making business decisions, for making life decisions, she talked about walking through all the different steps and the aspects and why it's beneficial and what's the right decision. That's really important. So next time you're going through a challenging moment, whether it's in healthcare and health treatments, or it's in business, or it's about planning long-term life, take a step back, sit down, and write through all the different aspects, as well as do you have a plan for if something happens. I mean, Edna made me think. I'm like, I really got to call. I gotta start thinking about that. And one thing I loved that I think was expressed when Edna was talking about her book and the joy and the legacy and the also therapy that was for her is she sat down and she did it in 90 days and done, and that concept. And I think so many of us can implement that into not just books that you've thought about writing and being like, okay, I have 90 days to get this done. Or it could be in business, right? You want to launch that podcast. I have 90 days to do this. Move the needle and set that goalpost for yourself and don't allow it to move. Because when we continuously allow it to move, it never gets done. So that is the one challenge I want to leave everyone with, as well as give yourself the 90 days and be done rule that Edna talked about. And really the last thing I want to leave everyone with is the importance of understanding our body and understanding what additional things we can all be using to help us, like the hyperbaric oxygen chambers and light therapy. And ask yourself, can that be used in my life? Is this something I can be using? Whether you're near Vancouver, Washington, or not. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Edna Ness. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.